Let's join four amazing magical girl graphic novel authors as they talk about girls, magic, and comics. On the top left, we have Julie Phillips at her drawing table. Next over is Sophie, wrapped up in a cozy scarf. Next is Jessi, sitting in a shadow and wearing glasses and a long sleeve blouse. On the bottom left is Reimena, wearing a letter-style jacket and red lipstick. Bottom right is our wonderful moderator, Gina, sitting in front of a bright window. Thank you to our wonderful authors for showing us your books.
Okay, welcome to Geek Girl Con and the Magical Girls panel, because of course we had to have a Magical Girls panel at Geek Girl Con. Magical girls are the most exciting and interesting kind of girls. I'm delighted to be here today with four amazing graphic novelists who each are also fans of magical girls and write about magical girls in their books. So I'm going to start off by having you introduce yourselves. Julie, do you want to start?
Sure, I'm happy to. My name is Julie Phillips. I write by Jessi Phillips. I'm an author illustrator. I'm living in Connecticut right now with my husband and my son and my two cats. I've studied art and theater pretty much all my life, and then at some point I decided to combine the two and become an author illustrator. This is my first graphic novel, Pacey Packer Unicorn Tracker. I'm pretty excited.
Awesome. Sophie, what about you?
Hi, so my name is Sophia Escabaz. I'm a cartoonist and an illustrator. I am French, as you can hear it. I've been living in Brooklyn for the last 12, 13 years, but just recently relocated to Montreal, Canada. It's called, with my three kids, husband, and my cat Terence that may do an appearance today, we'll see. And the book that I'm promoting today, it's called The Witches of Brooklyn. And it's the story of this little girl that you see on the cover, Effie, who comes to live in Brooklyn with her aunt and her friend. And she's gonna soon discover that they're witches and she has powers too. And well.
Yes. Jessi, what about you?
Hi, I'm Jessi Zabarsky. I'm living in Chicago. I also have a cat who is right now under the table. I have bribed her with second breakfast to not yell at me. We'll see how that goes. My book is Witchlight. It's shiny. It is a fantasy adventure shoujo story about two young women who end up going on a sort of magical feelings quest where they do a lot of witch fights and sword fights, but also a lot of having nice meals together and looking at plants and talking about their emotions and learning about each other and themselves.
Thanks, Jessi. Reimena, what about you?
Hi, I'm Reimena Yee. I'm a strange and fancy graphic novelist and illustrator from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm known for my whimsical, godhead, spooky stories for all ages and being transparent about comics club and my passion for history and art things. I'm the author of a Séance Tea Party, which recently came out. It's about this girl who's afraid of growing up, and then she makes friends with the ghosts who used to be an imaginary friend from childhood. And they go on adventures, but of course, these kinds of things, they might not last forever. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I'm curious to know more about the magical girl in your most recent book. What kind of things does she like, and what kind of magical powers does she have? How does her magic work? Jessi, do you want to start off with that?
Sure. So the magical girl of the two is Lelik. She is a witch. She is traveling around trying to find the missing half of her soul / power. And she's sort of like a little bit of a tsundere, where she's kind of got a rough exterior and underneath is a little marshmallow that gets her feelings hurt easily and gets embarrassed, but likes, laughing with little kids and eating sweet things. Her magic, because half of it is missing, she can't do magic directly like other witches do. She has a potion that she makes that she puts on her fingers so she can lick it off and get like a little dose of it. And then she can basically blow magic out and shape that as she wishes. So even other magic users in her world are like, oh, this is strange and unusual, and we're not sure if we like it or if it's good. I don't know.
Wow, that's so cool. Reimena, what about you?
Well, she's not a magical girl exactly. She's probably got like magic in the sense that she has a powerful imagination and like a fascination for anything spooky and strange. But anyway, Laura is this like 12-year-old girl who's one of those weird kids, like the eccentric kid who knows who they are and like they are unashamed in their interests. So Laura loves playing pretend and like engaging with the world, and this love like manifests in the form of imaginary friends, like little fairy-like animals that follow her around. And the fairies are more symbolism than like actual literal magic, but also then again, like creativity is definitely a form of magic, like, right? I mean, we make words and characters like just like from out of nowhere out, Tina, and like that's a really cool power that all of us here have managed to like keep, and we get to like make books, and that's a privilege to have.
Yeah. Julie, what about you?
Pacey Packer is a little similar. She doesn't start off with any kind of like magic powers. When the book opens, she's babysitting her little sister Mina, and they're fighting because Mina wants her to play. But Pacey has recently sort of discovered that she likes to be in charge. She likes to have some authority. She'd recently helped rescue a neighbor's dog by tracking its paw prints and finding it, and she got an article in the paper as like a local hero. So she's kind of got this hero complex, and she really likes it. So that's kind of how she starts off. And then what happens is something magical does occur, is that when she's making up with her sister and she goes into her sister's room, she opens the door and her sister's sitting on a real unicorn, and her stuffed animal unicorn Slasher is actually alive. And they take off out the window, but Pacey's in hero mode, so she grabs onto the tail of the unicorn and they go flying over this rainbow, but Pacey slips and Slasher slips, and then they spend the rest of the time in Rundlin, the magical land of the unicorns, where there's magic all over the place. And Pacey's got to use her skills to help find Mina and get her back home before her parents find out. But she sort of discovers some magic along the way.
Yeah, so I feel like Laura, Reimena's protagonist, is like discovering ghosts with the help of creativity. And Pacey, your protagonist, is like discovering unicorns with the help of sarcasm.
Yes, that's very well said. Yes.
Sophie, what about you?
Effie is at the beginning of the Witches of Oakland. I mean, in the first book, her power just woken up. So she just discovered that she has magical power, and she has to deal with that. And what we soon realize as a reader is that she has a natural ability, as it goes, that it works sometimes with witches, with magic. You have things that you were born knowing how to do without even like working on it. And in Effie's case, it's the ability of bringing two-dimensional drawings or paintings or like images into life. So she just know how to do that. And so she's going to have to work on mastering that skill because she's not that confident yet with it. But she has that in her. That's her power. And she's also going to have to learn all about like magical history with Francis, and about like spells and potion and all that with her aunt and her friends, Selimene and Carlota, who are like her mentor and is going to take care of teaching her all the bases.
So I'm curious about what is it about magic and girls that inspired you to combine the two in telling your story, besides that magic and girls are both awesome, obviously. Julie, do you want to start off?
Sure. I mean, for me, when I was creating the story, I really wanted to write something that was very empowering to girls. I'd done some picture books, and one of the main characters was a little ninja boy, and so it's like, I've covered the boys, let's get something for the girls, and so let's create a really kind of exciting, powerful, strong character. So with Pacey, I kind of came into it and I wanted her always to have these three things. I wanted her to have self-confidence, which she's got in abundance, maybe sometimes too much. I wanted her to have some legitimate skills that she's bringing to the table. She's 12, but there are things that she can do as a 12-year-old, and she's not like the clumsy, shy. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not her. And the other thing that was really important to me is I wanted her to enjoy the adventure. I didn't want her to feel put upon or that everything was too much. She's coming alive in this adventure. She's discovering something true about herself. And so those are the kinds of things I wanted to put into Pacey in this story.
Yeah, great. Sophie, what about you?
I'm a girl myself, and I've always been in love with everything like magical and like secrets and like witches, like forever. And I have two little girls too, who are like mid-grade age, who are also fascinated by all that. So I kind of went in that direction naturally. And that's just the kind of story that I'm attracted to. So I just like died for it.
Awesome. Jessi, what about you?
Very similar. I grew up reading a lot of young adult fantasy, which I think has the most American version of magical girls, that just a lot of girls with cool powers that I was like, oh yeah, this is the stuff for me. And when I was starting Witchlight, I was also in the process of a few years previous, I had realized I was making a lot of stories about boys and men, and I was making these stories about my own, very dear feelings and experiences, but put them on a male character because I thought that was like more relatable somehow. And then I realized I was doing this. I'm like, wait a second, it's time for some girls. This is weird. They can be relatable too, or characters don't necessarily have to be relatable to be wonderful and entertaining.
Okay, thanks, Jessi. I want to come back to this, what you've been reading in our next question. But before we do that, Reimena, what about you and Girls and Magic?
Séance Tea Party is semi-autobiographical, so the work is based on me, like who I was when I was her age. So at the time, like I was obsessed with cryptids and like borrowing books from the library about the supernatural and like strange phenomena, you know, time traveling, the Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, all that. So when I was making this book, like I wanted to acknowledge girls who share the same interests, and to show like through the story that this is an interest that they can keep throughout their lives. It's not something that you throw away once you like turn into a teen or like a real adult or whatever. Like,
Cool. Okay, so now I want to ask about your favorite fictional magical girls. Who are they? Why are they your favorites? Jessi, do you want to start us off with this one?
Sure. So back to young adult fantasy novels. The first one that comes to mind is Alana from the, I think it's the Song of the Lioness series, that are 4 books. I think 4 books. It's been a while. But Alana is this, she's part of a set of twins, and she really wants to be a knight, but you know, girls aren't allowed. And her brother does not want to be a knight. He wants to go learn magic. And they're identical twins, but you know, girl boy. And so when their parents send her brother off to be a knight and her to go to like a convent or something, they switch places. And so it's all about her learning. It's a lot of like, you know, sneaking around and trying to fool people and getting in trouble. But there's also magical elements that she's got, like blessings from a deity that help her out, and that she's got her own power as well. So I was very, very enthusiastic as a kid. Just like,
I love those books too. Reimena, what about you?
I'm not actually familiar with like the classical magical girl canon, you know, like Sailor Moon, because I didn't grow up with that. But weird girls though, that's different. I like Matilda a lot, both the movie and the book, and I also particularly relate to Lydia Deetz from Beetlejuice and Creepy from this animated TV series called Growing Up Creepy. I really like saw myself like in these like precocious self-aware girls who enjoyed like the things they like, which is usually tends towards the spooky side. And the two of them that I mentioned, they also have like dark and gothic aesthetics, which I'm like I'm living it right now. Yeah,
no, that's great. Julie, what about you?
I think my favorite, I had to like, when I saw the question, I had to like go through my list, right? But I think my favorite is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I brought a visual aid. I love Buffy. One of the main reasons that character really speaks to me is because, well, I think she was like, you know, kind of one of the first powerful fighting, you know, magical girls that you saw sort of in pop culture. But the great thing about Buffy that I love is that she's very free to be exactly who she is. She can like a mini skirt and glitter barrettes and still go out there and be powerful and awesome and super powered. So I thought that the nice thing about Buffy that I really relate to is she's just one of her superpowers is just confidence in being exactly who she is and not trying to change for anybody.
Oh, no, that's great. Sophie, what about you?
There's different characters like magical girl that I'm really in love with. I mean, the at the top of my head there's Sophie Hatter that I really like from the book called Howl's Moving Castle. I really like her because she's at the beginning of the book, she's really, she's the oldest sister. She wants to please, to do everything like, she do what she's told, basically. And I can relate to that. I'm the oldest too, but life, she gonna find herself going through all kind of adventures and crazy situation, and through all that, she's gonna discover that she has so much power inside, so much fire, and she's incredible. And plus her kind of magic, I talk to things too, I'm gonna talk to my pencil over there, and I'm talking to my coat and my bag who keeps disappearing, noticing when you look for it. So I kind of relate to that magic too. And there's Tiffany A. King. Tiffany A. King, who's a character, Terry Pratchett character. I'm a huge fan of Terry Pratchett. She's amazing, and she's hanging out with such amazing cast of characters too. And everyone, you read Terry Pratchett, is incredible. And just recently, I discovered, I'm very late in the game, but I just started reading Akata Witch, and I'm like really rooting for Sunny. Go Sunny, she's amazing. So yeah, read Akata Witch, it's an incredible book.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great collection of books. Okay, so Julie, what are 3 things or 3 traits that you feel most exemplify magical girls?
Confidence. A strong moral compass. We don't want any evil girls. And then creativity, which I know we touched on before, is sort of our superpower, but those were the 3 I thought of.
Yeah. Sophie, what about you?
I would say, yes, strong, generous, and resourceful.
Jessi?
I was thinking about this last night. I think one that hasn't been said by others already is like a willingness for self-sacrifice, to give something to help or protect other people. That willingness is important.
Reimena, what about you?
Well, an openness to the strange, a love for the world, and just plain joy.
That's great. These magical girls are amazing. I like them very much. Okay, now I want to ask about manga and anime, because I feel like they've been such a big influence in this country on making there be more fiction about girls and more books for girls. And so I'm curious if you read manga and watch anime, and if that's had an influence on you. And I know some of you have brought up some things that are anime already, so just curious to hear more about that. Jessi, do you want to start off?
Sure, yeah. I haven't watched a ton of specifically magical girl anime. I'm like a fake Sailor Moon fan, where I'm very pro Sailor Moon, but cannot remember characters' names, that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, my favorite one is the green one. I can't remember which planet she is, but I know it's the green one because she's tall and has brown hair and is a sweetie pie. But yeah, I definitely tend towards manga and anime that have strong female main characters. I think I would count Kagome from Inuyasha as a magical girl, and she's probably the one that I'm closest to in my heart. But yeah, I've got my collection over there of manga that I got from Borders before it went away.
Reimena, what about you?
The funny thing is that I didn't actually like grow up watching a lot of anime or like reading a lot of manga, even though it's like a very big thing here in Malaysia. But I do read a few, and but I mostly like watch a lot of anime movies, more because like I don't have time and I don't have enough shelf space here. I live in a really small apartment. But I mean, despite the fact that I can't really say much personally about manga and anime, I do think that our generation of like creators, we owe a lot to like manga and anime for like the stories that are coming out today, whether it's through self-published spaces or traditionally published spaces, like right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Julie, what about you?
You know, I don't have a whole lot of experience with any of that. I'm making a list of all the great books you guys are talking about. I've seen some movies, like I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, and there was one, Spirited Away. And now I'm listening to this, I'm like, I gotta go watch those movies again because they are awesome. They're so creative, and I think, you know, for me being American, it opens, you know, you might think you're being super creative about something, but there are things that I've just seen over and over again that get into my lexicon of magic. And when you look at magic from other cultures, there's just so much wonderful new ideas to discover. So I don't have anything to add as far as suggestions, but I'm writing them down so I can go learn some stuff.
Oh, great. Sophie, what about you?
I will definitely second Miyazaki. I mean, seriously, I'm a huge fan. Mononoke Princess, and most of all Nausicaa, I think it's like just has had such a big influence on me. I mean, they did like a compilation of the books, because I mean, the movie is amazing, but the movie covers only like what, the first book or two, not even. And the series is just like, wow. I mean, it's incredible. Really, everyone should read it. And otherwise, yeah, I grew up like watching manga on TV, animate, because one of the French channel, I mean, like there was this kids show that had bought like all the rights for like so many cool show, like Sailor Moon, like Ranma, how do you say, Ranma and Me, or Ranma and a Half? I don't know how you say.
Ranma one half, yeah.
I'm a huge fan. And Creamy, and like Gigi, and like Gem and the holograms and all that. So I grew up like watching all that. So yeah, definitely had an influence on me and on the girls, and like the stories I can come up with, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so this is the Magical Girl panel, but I'm also curious about other girl stories that you like that don't necessarily have magic or center magic. So, you know, are there other specific books or kinds of stories about girls that you really incline to that aren't necessarily in the specifically like magical girl category? Julie, do you want to start us off?
Sure. You know, I'm a Jane Austen freak. I love some period Jane Austen wit and charm. So in addition to having the collection that I like to read, which Pride and Prejudice would be my favorite, I'm all about Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. You know, if I've got 3 hours and I just need to leave this world, I'll go watch a movie. You know, I'll go watch one of Pride and Prejudice, or I think I just watched Wuthering Heights, actually, any of that genre where it's, you know, they're all heroines and they're all dealing with the challenges of their time, mostly being kind of born a woman and what they have to overcome, and they're all kind of smart and bright and well read, but nobody pays much attention to them because they're women, so they have to sort of overcome that. But I love a Jane Austen period piece.
Awesome. Sophie, what about you?
I'm a big fan of biographies, I have to say. I mean, we're all like, you know, human female in the world, and we all have our way to deal with that. And I think it's super cool to read about how others are like doing it and dealing with that. I love particularly like travelers, like Alexandra Davinel, Ella Maillard, I really love their books. I recently read Michelle Obama Becoming Amazing, or Tara Westover Educated. That would just like, that set me there. Yeah, biographies.
Awesome. Jessi, what about you?
Non-magical, I think I like a lot of stuff that's more grounded in reality. That like, I was a big Little House on the Prairie fan growing up, to the point where I took multiple Saturday morning classes about, you know, learning to make hardtack and your own butter and stuff. And they started recognizing me, and they're like, "We have nothing more to teach you. Why did you come back?" And like, definitely looking back, there's some problematic thoughts there, but at the time, I was just like, oh, these little girls out in the middle of nowhere, and they're just like encountering wild animals and living off the land. Oh, so cool. More recently, Julie, I think you in particular might like this one. There's a show on Netflix called Call the Midwife.
Oh, yes.
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 Which is about a group of both nuns and secular women who are practicing midwifery in like 1940s through 60s ish England, and just like getting to see how they handle that time period, and both struggles and triumphs of being women at that time. And like, there's a lot of change in that period of both like social norms and just like technological developments in their field. And it's something that it's like, I have no interest in ever being pregnant or being a mother, and I haven't since I was like, I knew this at like 11, but it's like, oh, this celebrates this thing that that I don't want for myself, but I can see the wonder in it for other people, and that's just, I love it. Highly recommend.
Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Reimena, what about you?
I think I already said this earlier, but I like stories about weird, individually strong girls who engage with work, and but I also enjoy girl stories where the emotions are like tangible, like squishy, waterable, and maybe a bit unhinged. So like girls turning into werewolves to hunt down their offenders, vampires causing hijinks, that kind of stuff. I can't really like bring up any recommendations to mind, but I also like reading feminist retellings of myth, and like I suppose like historical events. Yeah, I really like that. So there's Circus by Madeline Miller. That's really good. And what else can I think of? And then like there are also like translations of epics by women. So we have the most recent translation of Beowulf that just recently came out. I heard that's really good. It starts with bro, and it's like, it's so radical, you know. And then there's much earlier, there's also a new translation of The Odyssey by Emily Wilson, and I really like that, because it's like it's so accessible, and then the way that Emily Wilson like approaches this text, this really like martial, this really like super old, this is like, you know, like ancient white man culture kind of thing. It's like the way she approaches it with like this coming from perspective of someone from the margins, like that's really interesting. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we just talked about uh, magical girls and girl stories, but I'm also curious about magic in general and what kind of magical stories you like, whether it's nature magic or vampires or witchcraft or techno magic. Like what sort of magical stories really draw you in? Jessi, do you want to start out?
Sure, yeah. I think I definitely kind of like everything you just said. I'm a big fan of that, like sort of earthier. I keep wanting to say like crunchy or gritty,
Yeah.
but it's just like it's got texture to it. Like the edges aren't sanded off. Kind of folktale magic almost. The Wizard of Earthsea series, or the Earthsea cycle, is a big one for that. I have it over there, but I recently got like the big, beautiful, like 500-page compilation of that, and I'm like, that kind of stuff. I've been getting into N.K. Jemisin's stuff finally. I'm super late to the party, but she's amazing. And I love a lot of like tabletop role-playing game podcasts. They're wonderful to listen to while I work on comics. Stuff like, you know, The Adventure Zone, and my big favorite is Friends at the Table, which does both that, like more Dungeons and Dragons style, like fantasy magic, but also more like technological science fiction, but also kind of magic. They like to blur the line. I thank them in the back of Witchlight, so I have to thank them here. So gotta shout them out. Recently, I've been listening to a short series on a small podcast called Asians Represent, where it's a all Asian cast, and they took traditional D&D and like did a bunch of work to kind of reskin it to be specifically Asian culture and represent a lot of just different cultural traditions there, and it's super good. It's just like it's such a different but wonderful world to see them explore.
That's great. Reimena, what about you?
I really love magic realism, like anything that treats time, memory, local beliefs, family eccentricities, and like the immediate world as magic. Just storytelling as magic. It's also very delicate how authors from places that were once colonized. It's delicate how they like grapple with like trauma of change, you know, and loss that comes from like modernity and war and like the effects of colonialism, and there's this celebration in community and the land, and of course it also touches upon like the bitterness of like being true and like rebelling from tradition. And I just think like the point of view that these authors speak from, it feels more true to me personally, like as someone who comes from, you know, a former British colony. So yeah, it's it's huge. It's very comforting to read stuff like that. You know, something that's like outside of typical Western tradition.
That's great. Julie, what about you?
I love this book called The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And she actually recently put out another one. I was like waiting for years for her to put out another one called The Starless Sea. And the thing about her magic is it's slow moving. It's like molasses. It comes at you kind of slow, but it sort of encompasses you and it sticks to you so that you like love this world that you're in. it's not flashy. You know, all the books you mentioned with the vampires and all that stuff, I'm all down with all that stuff. But Erin Morgenstern will like wrap me up in like Sophie's cozy neck thing, and you know, I get all cozy in this world because the magic just comes in kind of slow, and it's luscious and it's rich, and it's just in the world and in the air, and you can kind of like feel it, like it's humid, and you know, I didn't describe anything of the plot there. I just described the tone, but it's kind of like the feelings. Like I love her books because they give me these magic feelings that I'm living in this kind of awesome world where it looks like it's your own world, but there's layers underneath it if you're willing to go there.
Great. Sophie, what about you?
I love all kind of magics. I'm like more inclined myself towards like magic that take roots in nature, you know, like pagan stories and all that. I mean, I'm like, you know, anything that lives has a spirit. I do believe in that. And so I will, I mean, I'm incorporating like more and more of that in my books at the moment, and I'm having a lot of fun. Trees are magical, people. We love trees. Trees are working for us for free every day. They make the air we breathe. They're amazing. Respect them. But other than that, I love stories that mix like everything. Like Terry Pratchett does it amazingly. Neil Gaiman does it too, like in the Graveyard Book, for instance, where he mixed like, you know, you have vampires, but you have ghosts, and you have, I love stories that mix like a little bit of everything, and just like you know, spicing it to make it like your sauce. But I like that a lot.
Awesome. Okay, so magical girl graphic novels. What ones are your favorites? Julie, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I have visual aids. Amulet by Kazu Kibuishi is a fan. We're waiting for like in the next one. I think he got a little burned out. There were like 7 in a row, and then we've had this break. This is a fantastic story. That is also, the art blows me away. So a parent dies, something tragic happens that sends them on their path, and Emily's father dies. So Emily's mom takes the 2 kids off to like this kind of rundown house that's in her side of the family, and so they have to like go in and clean it up, and it's all dusty and cobwebs and stuff, but there's some magic in the house. There's something downstairs. And Emily's mom actually gets kind of kidnapped by the creatures down there, and Emily kind of goes on this adventure to save her mom and the brother, and then it just unfolds into this huge world, and different old ancient wars and hidden powers that are inherited. And so that's a great one. Another one to recommend is Zeta the Space Girl, where Zeta, Ben Hotke, oh man, I didn't practice saying it beforehand. I apologize if I just butchered that. Emily's just a regular girl. She's playing with her friend in a field, and this asteroid comes in, and they're checking it out. I should say it's small. It's not like asteroid, it's small, but it made a big dent in the ground. And when they go to check it out, it's sort of like this portal opens and something sucks her friend in. So Zeta again has to go and rescue her buddy. And while out there in the world, or in the space world, there's lots of creatures and different awesome things. So those are my 2 recommendations.
Those are great recommendations. Sophie, what about you?
I will recommend your books, girls.
Oh, yeah.
All of you. I really, really love them. I mean, Witchlight, I didn't have the occasion to tell you, but I really, really love Jessi, your book. And all of you. And Reimena, I told you already how much I loved your book. Julie, I haven't read your book yet, so I need to read it, but I'm sure it's amazing. And I kind of fell for like 5 World, I have to say. I love Una. I think it's, the first thing that caught me is like the work, I mean, the illustration, the art is amazing. The color, oh boy, the color. I'm like, wow, 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 wow. And yes, so I will highly recommend Five Wells, the series. It's really, really great. And yeah, the whole idea of the Sun Dancer, it's so poetic. I really love it. I think it's amazing.
Jessi, what about you?
Sophie mentioned earlier the Nausicaa graphic novels. Those are like, oh, they're so good, and I have very strong opinions about how they're so much better than the movie. So if you love the movie, go read the comic. And then I also have here a couple that I really love. Hakume and Mikuchi is this wonderful little story about these two tiny ladies who live in like a tree house together. And it's just like, if you like Arrietty or the Borrowers, or, you know, any of that kind of like tiny naturey magic, this is just like such a charming magical slice of life book. Highly recommend that. And then Ran in the Gray World is about a little girl who is the daughter of two powerful magical people, and she is not really allowed to do magic yet because she's too little, but she has these magical tennis shoes, sneakers, that they're way too big for her, but when she puts them on, she turns into a full-grown lady and she can go out in the world and have the agency of being an adult. Warning for anyone, there is like a little bit of like, oh, this wouldn't be acceptable to write this in America, that it's like an adult man is like, oh, I'm so fascinated with you, who are you? And she's like, I like plants. and so there's like a little bit of there, but it's I love really lovely like black and white artwork, and this has such beautiful artwork and really inventive magic, and it's so fun.
Those are some great recommendations. Reimena, how about you?
I don't have the books with me right now, but I would say I would recommend Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu. So it's this young adult book about this witch and a non-binary werewolf. They were childhood friends, and then they were separated, and then they meet again, and like, yeah, that's cute. And then there's Witchy by Ariel Snart-Maries. This one is also a young adult graphic novel / webcomic. You can read it for free online. So it's about this girl with really long hair, like in the place where having long hair is like illegal because it means that you are so powerful that the government cannot control you. And then she gets caught for having this super long hair, this super long illegal hair, and then she cuts it, and then suddenly she's on the run from the government. So yeah, and then the other one that I have is so many witch books. Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. I have not actually read the book yet. It's actually a series. I've not read it yet, but I hear it's really good. So, I mean, if you like the books that we made, then I guess you will like those books too. Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming and talking about Magical Girls with me. This was amazing. And for anyone who's watching, if you're all excited about Magical Girls right now, these panelists have made some great books about them. J.C. Phillips, Pacey Packer, Unicorn Tracker, Sophie Escabase's The Witches of Brooklyn, Jessi Zabarsky's Witchlight, and Reimena Yee's Seance Tea Party. So you can't go wrong with these amazing magical girls. Panelists, thank you all so much, and thank you all for coming and listening to us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you.